faith in that. Incidentally, tomorrow is a National Day of Prayer and Fasting, or a day of national prayer and fasting.
Okay.
Yes. At home in St. Vincent. We usually have that event once a year, but now given the current crisis, we're having this one. Well, even during the pandemic, during the most critical parts of the pandemic, we used to have national concerts via the online modalities so that the population could, you know, come together and worship and give thanks and pray for safety.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, we need lots of prayer in these troubled times.
Good afternoon, Miss Joseph. It's good to see you. It's been a while. I hope that you're well.
It's been a while. Yes, I'm well, thank you. And you look marvelous.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Andrew, just to let you know that my colleague, Ambassador Rhonda King, Her Excellency Inga Rhonda King, she's the permanent representative at the UN. She's joined us this afternoon.
Welcome, welcome. Is she on now?
Colleagues, I am on, but I'm off camera temporarily. If you'd bear with me because I'm on another call, but I am present. So thank you for inviting me, Ambassador Gilchrist, but I'm present with you, but just bear with me a bit. I'm a bit distracted. I'm on another call, sorting out my schedule for next week.
Understood, understood, Ambassador. Andrew, yes. you'd remember that Ambassador King is chairing, well, she's responsible for St. Vincent's seat on the UN Security Council.
Oh, excellent.
Yes,
I remember.
That is her portfolio. So she's always engaged with those matters.
Excellent. Well, we're so happy to have her here with us, grace us with her presence. Hello, Miss June, a fellow Massachusetts.
Yes, and Andrew, we also have with us Mr. Duniston Woods. I'm calling the names which I recognize. That is not to, show any prejudice to anyone else. Everyone is welcome. We also have Patsy the Diva. We have Cheryl Ann Mason, who's one of the coordinators of SVG DRIP. I'm not seeing Wendy anymore. And so just saying hello to everyone.
Good afternoon, Madam Ambassador. How are you?
Hello, Cousin Patsy.
Good afternoon, Ambassador. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's Wendy. I'm still here. I'm not sure why you can't see me.
Oh, it's the view. It's the type of view that we have. Andrew is sharing his screen. That's why. Yes. So good afternoon, everyone.
Good evening, Ambassador.
Hello.
Everyone. Andrew.
Hi, Rudy.
Good evening, Ambassador. Hope all is well.
Hi. Councillor Clifton, good evening.
Hi. Councillor Clifton is here, most present. It's good to see so many folks.
Yes, and we have also with us, where's Reverend? The Reverend. We also have a friend of St. Vincent and the Grenadines on Martha's Vineyard. That's Mrs. Anita Body. Hello.
Hi, Miss Anita. my fellow Massachusetts resident.
We also have Mr. Gary Wiggins. Mr. Gary Wiggins is a new friend of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And I want to welcome Mr. Charles Sharp from Black Emergency. Welcome, Mr. Sharp.
Any relationship?
Without the E. He is always without the E.
Okay.
Afternoon. We have Dr. Gill, our honorary consul in Los Angeles. He's with us as well. Welcome.
Hey, honorary consul Gill.
I believe, Ambassador, we also have Dilly and Glenn DeBlaze from Martha's Vineyard on the line as well.
Hi. Thank you. Good afternoon, Dilly and Glenn. Welcome. Thank you for joining. I'm seeing Miss Allison. Hello, Miss Allison.
And I want to say welcome to all my Caribbean Americans who have joined us from other states. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome, welcome.
Hopefully we should have some colleagues from Willesden Seventh-day Adventist Church in Northwest London.
Right.
Who've set up a disaster response team, and some colleagues who are also involved in international development and recovery as well. So hopefully they will be on.
Excellent.
So I'm pleased we've also got people thinking about the recovery as well. So I think that's important for them to understand exactly where we are now.
Thank you, Mr. Page. And I see Dean Roden. Good afternoon.
Yes, from Connecticut.
Welcome, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, from Hermitage, Connecticut.
Yeah, you got to mention Hermitage with Dean Roden.
Yes, my fellow Andrew. Welcome, thanks.
Hey, welcome. Welcome the diaspora. So we'll start in approximately the next 2 minutes, Ambassador. We are actually going live on Facebook.
Yeah, thank you.
So as we say in the island, put on your best face and your pretty outfit.
And your Sunday dress.
And all those who already had their Sunday dinner or waiting for their Sunday dinner, welcome. Welcome the UK diaspora. I want to welcome you guys also. And welcome those who are from the Caribbean region who has joined us. I just want to confirm, is the Seismic Research Center is with us? Just want to confirm, is Dr. Latchman here? More persons coming on. Bonsoir, bon tardi, buenos tardes. Welcome everyone. We want to warmly welcome you on this Sunday morning as we update you with another information on St. Vincent and the Grenadines Volcano. It is with great pleasure that the Authentic Caribbean Foundation, along with many of our Caribbean diaspora organization, delighted to provide up information, support on this tragic disaster that is happening in the Caribbean island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but actually St. Vincent is where the volcano La Soufrière is located. The Authentic Caribbean Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization which provides support for Caribbean American community and the Black and Brown community in the state of Massachusetts. We are so proud of our team who have really actioned the call to jump straight into providing support in any way for Caribbean National, both here and in the Caribbean region, and especially for our disability community, which is our focus. We zoom into that. We're happy again that everyone has joined us. And as we get another update on what's happening on the ground, we're grateful to have our wonderful ambassador from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. All protocol observed, and Ambassador Luan Gilchrist, I give you the floor. Community, which is our focus.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for hosting this live again so that we can update the diaspora and friends on the situation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I say good afternoon to everyone who has joined us. We thank you for your kind support. We thank you for your solidarity and for your interest. I know that Mr. Page is joining us from the UK, and Mr. Page is a good friend of ours. Now, I would like to give you an overview of the situation on the ground so that you can have a sense of what the challenges being faced in St. Vincent and the Grenadines at the current moment are and what they are likely to be going forward. I thank you in advance for your patience. Following months of heightened activity, the La Soufrière volcano entered an explosive state on April 9th, 2021, and continues to erupt explosively. The entire population of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been affected with severe ash falls, resulting in a major displacement of people in the most hazard-prone areas of the country. The ashfall has resulted in the temporary closing of the airport in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and in the neighboring island of Barbados. Some business places also closed temporarily. St. Lucia was also affected by light ashfall. Significant economic disruption and the loss of livelihoods for thousands further compound the economic distress resulting from the pre-existing COVID-19 pandemic. Additionally, the approaching Atlantic hurricane season, which begins on June 1st, elevates the prospect of multiple hazards and compounding risks. The St. Vincent and the Grenadines monitoring team indicates that the current activity pattern is more similar in impact to the 1902 eruption than to that of 1979. It is indicative of devastation and destruction. The 1902 eruption, which began in May that year, spanned 11 months, ending in March 1903, while the 1979 eruption, which started in April, continued for 7 months until November of that year. Both events coincided with the Atlantic hurricane season. The assessment of the loss and damage continues as the disaster situation is evolving with the ongoing eruptions. More than 13,000 people are in 88 government-run shelters. The count as of April 20 is 6,208 occupants in shelters and 6,567 in private homes. This represents 12% of the country's population. The number will increase as the process of registration and documentation of the displaced continues. It is estimated that 1/5 of the population is likely to be displaced. It is not certain whether the families will be able to return to the most hazardous areas even after the eruptions. To date, thankfully, there are no registered casualties. The economy. The northern 1/3 of the mainland, St. Vincent, is in a state of desolation due to a thick layer of ashfall and pyroclastic flows. Extensive damage to agriculture, infrastructure, buildings, and forestry was registered. More than 16 inches of ash is observed in the northern zone, which is classified as the red volcanic hazard zone. The World Bank has assessed the replacement value of residential buildings as $64 million US, non-residential buildings as $106 million, and infrastructure as $83 million. That's all in US dollars. The total for buildings and infrastructure at risk in the red and orange zones is evaluated as $387.5 million US. The water system was closed as a preventative measure against the ashfall. Now, more than 70% of the water supply has been restored, while work continues as conditions permit to return the system to full capacity. The demand for additional sources of potable water and water for sanitation purposes was increased in the days immediately following the disruption of the water supply. However, with the support of governments in the region, diaspora groups, and other entities, the demand was met. The distribution of water to the affected communities continues. While the Argyle International Airport was closed owing to the ashfall, it was open to receive cargo. Outstanding and ongoing projects, as well as those initially expected to be completed soon, will be further delayed. Hence, the necessary technical and financial assistance is urgently needed. Issues such as debt consolidation, debt restructuring and forgiveness, budgetary support, shorter project cycles, strengthening tax collection and improving domestic resource mobilization, access to grants, concessional financing, and limited conditionalities on loans, or the removal of conditionalities are critical areas of focus going forward for recovery. Public health. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there are increased health risks. Vaccination and PCR testing were initiated in the shelters, and personnel has been deployed to the shelters to offer psychosocial support. Health officials are on alert for respiratory and dermatological problems due to the impact of ash clouds. Public health promotion is ongoing with advisories on coping with ash and dust emissions. Communication and educational material is being circulated, as are advisories to boil drinking water. Health issues such as the COVID-19, psychosocial and mental health concerns, tackling a dengue fever outbreak, dealing with HIV/AIDS and non-communicable diseases were being addressed and now must receive even sharper focus. This is made complex by the fact that people have been displaced and are living in closer confinement than before. Support is needed to retrofit the Evesham Health Center in the Green Zone to offer critical dialysis and oncology chemotherapy services, as the existing facility is located in the hazard zone. The health sector also has a critical need for water storage facilities, such as tanks with pumps and all of the necessary fittings. Livelihoods. The proportion of the population living in the red and orange volcanic hazard zones is classified as socioeconomically poor. Their livelihoods consist of agriculture, fishing, animal husbandry, and some tourism. Hence, focus is needed on rehabilitating these areas as well as restoring to normalcy the overall economy in keeping with the country's National Economic and Social Development Plan 2013 to 2025, with appropriate modifications due to current realities. Crucially, we note that the ash from the volcano can be used as a mechanism to reinvigorate the economy, and that would require some creativity. The main sectors of the economy are financial services, agriculture, including agro-processing and fisheries, tourism, manufacturing, that's light manufacturing, and the cultural and creative industries. As such, foreign direct investment will be needed. Education. Schools have been disrupted as most of the shelters are primary and secondary schools. Prior to the volcanic eruptions, schools were set to resume in-person teaching and learning on April 12th, based on the country's success in tackling the COVID-19 pandemic on the ground. The current situation is therefore a setback as challenges were endured via online learning. Not all students, for several reasons, were able to attend classes online. Going forward, much assistance will be needed in this area, not only for students in shelters, but also for the entire population. Social and economic programs will need to be supported and improved upon to assist children. One complexity in the delivery of education is that teachers are massively engaged in the management of shelters, and some of them have also been displaced. Further, programs and facilities need to be sustained and improved to support early childhood education, primary and secondary education, scholarships and grants, adult and continuing education, technical and vocational education, and other forms of skills training. Special care, of course, must be taken of and provided for all persons with special needs. Infrastructure. According to the analysis by the World Bank, which was mentioned previously, it must be highlighted that in the red and orange volcanic hazard zones, the total built assets at risk are evaluated to be approximately $387.5 million US. However, in the red zone alone, the replacement value of residential buildings is US 64 million. Of non-residential buildings, it is $106 million. And of infrastructure, the figure is US 83 million. The World Bank also noted that in the, I quote, high pyroclastic flow surge, quote, end of quote, hazard zone, the capital stock value of the buildings and infrastructure is $188 million US. Specifically, upon careful analysis, around 16% of the island's 100,000 people live inside the red and orange zones, but only around 9% of the total residential exposure value is within these two zones. More analysis by the World Bank reveals that, based on a similar magnitude of events and exposure, preliminarily, it has been deduced that already there are direct damages of over $100 million US for this year's eruption for asset classes such as buildings, infrastructure, agriculture, and forestry. Since this is preliminary, and the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has not yet concluded its assessment, these figures may vary. Natural resources and the environment. Reports of dead birds, fish, and livestock were received. A UNEP team, including environmental toxicologists, was mobilized to implement a plan for cleanup, disposal of ashes, and to address environmental health concerns. The cleanup of the ashes is underway as efforts to commence to return to a state of normalcy. Continue. Notably, the influx of plastic bottles and other materials as part of relief items will pose a challenge if not adequately addressed. Sensitization and ongoing programs, as well as assistance in building resilience to climate change, are required. Digital needs. Apart from reports of a massive power outage on April 11th due to the eruption, no other interruptions of the telecommunications services were reported. Nevertheless, as the situation unfolds, there is still need to improve upon internet capacity and availability within the country. Technical and financial assistance remain critical too, as efforts remain ongoing with the implementation of the e-government system. National security. The security situation is stable on the ground. The local security and police force is receiving support from the regional security system and from governments in the region. As developments unfold, ongoing support may be needed. The necessary cooperation, technical and financial assistance, and intelligence sharing remain critical. Gender issues. The protection and empowerment of women and girls remain priorities. Tackling discrimination, combating gender-based violence, and preventing trafficking and sexual assault become more critical during this period. Women and girls can be vulnerable during this period, especially those from the red and orange zones, whether they evacuate to shelters, private homes, or to other countries. Special care must therefore be taken for their protection. And that concludes the formal part of the presentation, and the references from the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Laissez-faire Volcano Situation Report by UNETT, UNSC, and OCA, and the World Bank Group Great Note on the Laissez-faire Volcanic Eruption, April 2021. I'd like to speak briefly on sources of support. At the community level, the embassy, permanent missions, and the Consulate General in New York are partnering with diaspora organizations and groups conducting relief drives. And we thank the groups for stepping forward so readily to provide much needed support to our country. Work is ongoing at the political level with the US administration. We are engaged with certain congresspersons, and they're providing support for us in a variety of ways. At this point, it would be premature to speak specifically of the types of support and assistance we're receiving through the political and administrative pipelines. So I close by reiterating our gratitude to all of the bodies, entities, and individuals who have engaged in the relief drive for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have immediate needs in this, as the Prime Minister says, our midnight hour of need. He also says, to quote our Prime Minister, that this is not a sprint, it is a marathon. This is not going to be over very soon. And therefore, while we are focusing on meeting the immediate needs of the displaced and the despondent, we also need to be thinking of rebuilding, recovery. It is a long path ahead of us, but by God's grace and with the support of people in the diaspora, organization, groups, various governments and administrations, we will get through this because our ultimate goal remains to preserve life and limb, to ensure that the affected are returned to their livelihoods, that they are able to survive. So I thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Gilchrist. It was great to hear this update, 14 days since the eruption of La Soufrière. And it has been a really tremendous effort on your government and many persons on the ground and also the diaspora who have really challenged, took action and organized relief effort right here in the United States and the United Kingdom. And we're so happy to see lots been happening on the ground for St. Vincent. I just saw that you guys are putting up the relief center that Nemo has put together, that center for storage of the relief supplies. So congratulations on that. Also, we see that many other Caribbean islands have given support to St. Vincent by shipping items. I know recently Martinique and Guadeloupe has just sent you guys some water, Barbados, St. Lucia, and many other. And we see that from the report we have seen also, you have reached out to the United Nations for assistance and support. We see also the UK, United Kingdom government has also provided support. So we're really, really glad that, we are helping our brothers keep and helping in any way as possible. I want to say thanks to our local organization, the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Association of Massachusetts, and ourselves and others in the Cape and so forth. They have contributed and rally around relief effort. And I know this weekend was a big support for SVG volcano relief happened in Dorchester. And for us, the contribution by persons in the state of Massachusetts has been tremendous. So Ambassador, you had mentioned a few points on stuff that are being put in place for, can you give us a little update on how things are coping for the vulnerable population in St. Vincent? Because you did give us a little bit on it, but I just wanted to get more detail. Are they placed in specific area shelters? And also, how is the shelter going in terms of the needs for persons who have been displaced?
Thank you for that question, Andrew. With regard to persons with special needs, Andrew, it is necessary to keep them with their families so that they can be comfortable and not suffer too greatly from the displacement. I understand also that special provisions were made, especially for those persons with physical impairments and impediments. And so they are being looked after. With regard to the psychosocial needs of the population that has been displaced, the Ministry of Health has that in hand. and their counselors are on hand. The Ministry of Education, which is responsible for shelter management, also has engaged fully the services of its trained counselors. And the Ministry of National Mobilization has social workers who are fully engaged in making sure that the psychosocial needs of the displaced are being met. And with regard to, are you asking also specifically about how the shelter management is taking place? Because I know that there are some sectors of the population in the diaspora especially.
Yes, Ambassador.
Okay, which have expressed some concern and concerns. Now, the shelter management is set up in such a way that even before, in ordinary time, even without the threat of a volcanic eruption, every year in advance of the onset of the Atlantic hurricane season, NEMO, the National Emergency Management Organization, and like I said, the name organization might be misleading. It is actually a unit of government. It is embedded in the Ministry of National Security, because disaster management is an element of security. So well before the onset of the Atlantic hurricane season, NEMO sends out teams of people with the technical expertise to assess buildings to be used as shelters. NEMO will compile each year a list of the improvements or refurbishment which would be needed to ensure that these buildings are safe, that they're secure, and that they could provide the requisite shelter for those seeking shelter. As far as is possible, then those improvements are made, whether it means that the electricals have to be sorted out or the plumbing has to be sorted out. All of these issues are taken into account. And the Ministry of Education, on its end, being responsible for shelter management, with the assistance of the principals of the schools designated as shelters, establishes a shelter management team. Those shelter management teams would each comprise of a shelter manager, a deputy shelter manager, as the case might be. And that shelter manager does not have to be the principal, because there are cases in which the principal of a school does not live in that community, and therefore the logistics, the movements would be difficult. So there's a shelter manager. Each team is supposed to be composed of someone for security, a police officer, a counselor, someone with medical training, a nurse, as far as is possible, a handyman, a carpenter, somebody with skills. And so that is how it goes. It is an established system, and it happens. Now, in the case of the volcano, these shelters, this list of shelters, 105 of them, including on the Grenadines, was published. Also published were the muster points in the event of an evacuation for the eruption of the volcano. The muster points were also published. NEMO was conducting, at first, remember this all happened during the COVID pandemic. NEMO was conducting sensitization and education drives in the communities in the most hazard-prone areas to educate the population there on what they would need to do in the event of an evacuation. This began once the volcano started to erupt effusively on December 29th last year. So there were education campaigns. When the conditions prevented the NEMO teams from conducting physical face-to-face meetings, town halls were held via Zoom. The population, NEMO did make all of the effort it could to educate the population, to prepare them. The information was compiled, it was published, and so that NEMO also had a plan for the evacuation itself. Now I come to the actual conditions in the shelter, the situation, I should say, in the shelters. When a level 4 disaster was declared on April 8th, just around 4:30 in the afternoon, immediately following that was the evacuation order. Therefore, the plans which NEMO had developed for the evacuation were activated. Maybe the plan did not go along the lines that it could have, but understand that the evacuation was massive. Those people who had the means of moving from the hazard zones independently, or I should say privately, were urged to do that. And then the government arranged evacuation vehicles and vessels were engaged. Everything might not have gone smoothly because with the impending eruption and with the fear that must have accompanied the evacuation order, all of the plans did not go or might not have gone as well as they looked on paper. And that is to be expected. Thankfully, those people who chose to leave the hazard zones did leave the hazard zones. They're now in the shelters. I must point out to you that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, being a mountainous country, has most of its roads being coastal. And again, because we're mountainous, we do not have a sophisticated network of roads. We don't have grids of roads. Okay, so I'm making that point to make it clear that we might have had some bottlenecks in terms of the traffic flowing smoothly from the northeastern and northwestern areas of the country into the green zones. So there might have been that congestion. The people are now in the shelters, and by now it is dark. The shelters are activated. We did not have at the time, on the evening of April 8th, all of the amenities and facilities and their pertinences necessary to make everyone as comfortable as they are now, or as they should be now. There were some setbacks, there were some delays, and believe me when I say to you that those gaps have been filled in a major way. There will, of course, be pockets in which the management of the shelters might not be going as smoothly or as well as it is designed to go. However, the public servants are on the ground, the NEMO is on the ground. There are different responsibilities assigned to different ministries in central government to ensure that the needs of the occupants of the shelter are met and that the needs of those people who are seeking shelter with friends and families in private homes are also met. There's a registration process which must be gone through because the government has to ensure that families are kept intact, that they're safe, that they're secure. Now, another element of this is that NEMO, I must say that NEMO, the staff of NEMO, which I would call the secretariat, consists of about, last I knew it was about 8 persons. The director, the deputy director, some technical staff and admin staff. However, NEMO, as the entity responsible for disaster management at a time such as this, is made up of the public sector, the private sector, voluntary organizations, service clubs, and others. So you would understand that the Red Cross has its roles and responsibilities. The Chamber of Commerce has roles and responsibilities. The service clubs, such as the Lions clubs, the Rotary clubs, they have their roles and responsibilities. And so when we hear that NEMO is not fulfilling its responsibility, NEMO is deficient, and the list of criticisms goes on and on. We must understand that the proper functioning, the effective functioning of the NEMO structure depends on each and every individual who forms part of that structure. The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is responsible. That's the permanent secretary. That's my permanent secretary. She is responsible for supplies. She's responsible for supplies. There's a permanent secretary who's responsible for, let us say, security. Well, maybe not a permanent secretary directly, because that would be the commissioner of police. But the roles and responsibilities are assigned, and each person, there's a subcommittee for all aspects, for each aspect of disaster management, for relief and recovery. Agriculture has its responsibilities. VINLEC has responsibilities. Central Water and Sewage Authority has responsibilities. The Chief Medical Officer, who has been literally on her feet since the 10th of March last year, has her responsibilities. And so we have to understand that having 14,000 people displaced, almost in distress because of the destruction of their homes or the disruption of their lives, damage to their homes, we must understand that they will feel some distress. We are sensitive to that distress. And I need to say that I am NEMO as well. Dr. Gill, you are part of NEMO. You are NEMO as well. Sherilyn is part of NEMO. We're all a part of NEMO, and we have a role to play. Ambassador King, as much as she sits on the UN Security Council with her hands full, she is a part of NEMO. And we're all doing what we have to do. We are lobbying at this point to get assistance. We are engaged with the diaspora groups. We are in touch with institutions, financial institutions, corporations, individuals. We are NEMO. Anita Botti, who is a friend of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, she is NEMO. The friends whom she has invited here, they are NEMO. I say this to emphasize to you the importance of having all hands on deck. All hands must be on deck. We welcome the criticism that is being touted about NEMO, because when there is criticism, it causes us to critically analyze our approach or systems with the objective of improving. And for heaven's sake, if you find that there are gaps in what NEMO does in the management of the process, give us constructive criticism, give us feedback, show us how we can make the systems work more smoothly, more effectively, in the interest of our people, in the interest of our country. That is what we're here for. We're here to make sure that our people survive, that they're happy, that they're comfortable, that they have hope. Can you imagine not having a home to return to?
Thank you so much, Ambassador. We appreciate that and that update. And I must say to everyone who has a question, please hold your question till after we speak to the UWI Seismic Research Center. We have Dr. Joan Latchman on with us and will give us an update. They have been on the ground working with the government. And Dr. Latchman, welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Good afternoon to everyone, to the host, to the ambassador, and everyone who's present on the chat. I'm happy for the opportunity to take any questions that you may have on the activity that we have had so far, how it evolved. Of course, I can give you the background of the evolution of unrest in St. Vincent. So I can start with that, and then I will welcome any questions. So as you're all Vincentians, you would know that your volcano has had effusive and explosive eruptions going back to 1718. Your most catastrophic eruption was in 1902, when over 1,600 people lost their lives in that eruption. It was historic for the region because within a day, we had 2 volcanoes erupt, one in Martinique and the other in St. Vincent. And in Martinique, over 30,000 people lost their lives. So the colonials who came out and settled our countries, our islands, they then had a better understanding of the power of the natural systems in the region. It is volcanic activity that gave rise to the establishment of the Seismic Research Center. Its original name was the Volcanological Research Department, and unrest in Nevis caused the colonial government to recommend that an agency be set up. And initially we were responsible for monitoring volcanic activity, and when the earthquake hazard was recognized as also significant in the region, the mandate was expanded to include earthquakes. So in St. Vincent, your volcano will have its episodes of unrest and eruption, effusive, explosive, and the most recent, as Ambassador mentioned, was in 1979. So you had your 71, 72 effusive eruption, and 7 years later in 79, the volcano exploded with less than 24 hours precursory seismic activity. So La Soufriere is a volcano that can go from virtually standing still to full-scale eruption. So it is one of the volcanoes that is most carefully monitored. In 2019, in general, after the background seismicity, which is associated with all volcanoes at La Soufriere, it's relatively low level. However, and every now and again, you'd have a slight burst, maybe over a day or two, you would see a little elevation, maybe 6 events or so, and then subside to what is background 1 volcanic earthquake every month, every 2 months or so. In 2019, in July of 2019, we saw a few tens of earthquakes associated with the volcano, and we subsided. And then in 2020, in November, we then observed another unrest episode. And that particular unrest episode, while generating again scores of earthquakes, subsided on the 23rd of December, and it went quiet. And then on the 29th of September, when we had a reconnaissance mission to the summit, a dome was observed to be growing in the crater. The pictures of tourists who had been to the volcano indicate that as early as the 27th, the dome started to manifest itself. So we then had an elevation in seismicity, a new type of seismicity, which we are describing as dome emplacement earthquakes, associated with the dome growing within the crater. So you had your 1979 dome, which grew following the 79 explosive eruption. And at the side, at the southwest edge of the existing 79 dome, a new dome began growing and filling the moat along that area of the crater. Thousands of dome emplacement events were recorded. And then another type of earthquake that we get associated with volcanic activity, which are called volcanotectonic earthquakes. The process by which these occur is magma moving and fracturing the rock as it makes its way to the surface. The signature of these earthquakes is different from another kind of earthquake we have, which we call hybrid, which would be fracturing of the rock and shaking of the magma. And then there are the long period earthquakes that are generated when processes within the magma are causing movement within the magma, and those give rise to long period earthquakes. So between the 23rd and the 29th of March, we had a swarm of volcanotectonic VT earthquakes. And then between the 4th and the 9th of April, there was another swarm of VT earthquakes. 23rd to the 29th, decaying through time, picking up again on the 4th of April. And then on the 9th, we had our first explosion. Between the 9th and the 10th of April, there were 17 explosions. Very heavy ash ejection was involved. So that volume of ash affected St. Vincent and affected Barbados because the eruption was powerful enough to push ash up into the upper atmosphere, where it was taken by the contrary winds, and therefore that ash was blown to the west, to the east. Normally we have the northeast trades blowing and they would go to the west, but those contrary winds would blow to the east. Following that, on the 11th, there were 7 explosions. On the 12th, there were 2. On the 13th, there were 2. 14th, 1. 16th, 1. 18th, 1. And the last explosion was on the 22nd. We are currently in a, following the explosions, we then started seeing large numbers, thousands of long period, hundreds of long period earthquakes. And at this time, the seismicity being observed at the volcano is very low level. So we are down to the volcano, possibly inhaling, waiting to exhale, if we are. Eruptions can last 3 months. In the case of 1902, 10 months. So we are continuing to watch the signs. We have seismic instruments to look at the earthquakes. We have gas instruments to measure the gases coming off the volcano. Of particular interest would be the sulfur dioxide and the volumes that are being ejected. We have dome ground deformation instruments. Our ground deformation instruments are used to see, as magma moves within the system, if you're having inflation of the system. It is worthy of note that before the first eruption, we had seen no ground deformation indicators. Following the eruptions, we are now seeing depressurization of the system, movement that indicates depressurization of the system, which is consistent with material having been pushed out of the system. So any questions you may have, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Latchman, for this update. We're so happy to have you. I could record when I saw information on the activity even before it had erupted. I was watching you guys implementing, putting in the different monitor system, until it erupted. We're going to go by order. Councillor Clifton, Rudy Page, LJ Hunter, and Craig. So Councillor Clifton, you could go ahead and raise your question.
Thank you. First of all, I want to recognize any other elected officials that might be on the call this afternoon. Also want to recognize the members of the Diplomatic Corps and certainly all our friends from St. Vincent and other countries in the Caribbean. As Andrew indicated, my name is Kenrick Clifton. I'm an elected official from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, specifically the town of Randolph, Massachusetts. And I just wanted to bring the audience up to date that last Monday, the council met and I was able to give an update to the community of Randolph, Massachusetts. Of course, I represent thousands of Caribbean nationals, many of whom are Vincentians. And I certainly want to thank the entire community, which has been mobilized in coming forward to assist our brothers and sisters in their time of distress. Contrary to what was earlier indicated, we are not all from St. Vincent. I was born and raised on the beautiful island of St. Kitts, and I'm aware that there are a couple of other Kittitians that are here. One of the things that has struck me throughout this entire situation is the fact that the residents in Massachusetts have been so responsive to our calls for assistance for the citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, specifically the residents on St. Vincent. But one of the things that I would like to see perhaps done more effectively is more frequent updates, because I can tell you that a lot of my constituents are yearning for information, and any updated information would certainly serve their interest. Another thing that might be of interest to my constituents is to get information with respect to how many Vincentians have been evacuated to other islands, which islands, and what has been the response from the respective Caribbean countries. I know St. Kitts and Nevis, for example, had committed $1 million and has been receptive to Vincentians coming over to both St. Kitts and Nevis to spend some time as their country goes through this trauma. But in summary, I certainly want to thank all of my constituents in Massachusetts, and I want to thank Andrew, Authentic Caribbean, and Ambassador Gilchrist, who has been so generous with her time and keeping us up to date. So that is it from the perspective of Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clifton. We're going to move on to Rudy Page.
Thank you for that, Andrew. Ambassador, could you tell us what type of technical expertise is required from international organizations with disaster rebuilding and recovery experience?
Mr. Page, thank you. At this point, as a non-expert, if we divide that into sectors, I would say, for example, for the agricultural sector, we would need agricultural scientists who could provide support for and advise support for examining soil quality, advising on what we would need to do to make our soils fertile. I know that eventually the fertility of the soil with the volcanic ash is going to improve, but in the short term, there might have to be some sort of technical input regarding the best approach to take to replant at the time. We might also find that we need, as we did in the past after disaster, some work regarding tissue culture. We might need seedlings, we might need nursery plants, because a lot of the displaced people made their living through agriculture. With regard to the literally rebuilding our structures, whether this is in the orange zone or even in the green and yellow zones, assuming, of course, that let us operate on the assumption that maybe the red zone might not be as habitable as it was before. So what we would need to do would be to get technical expertise on maybe buildings more sustainably, green buildings, making sure that our carbon footprint as we're rebuilding is not as important, or I should say as considerable as it was before. I'm also thinking, and this is not informed by any science, I'm saying this as a non-expert, a layperson. In the event that we have to resettle our population, you will recall that I said earlier that St. Vincent is mountainous. In fact, most of our homes are built, as you might know, Dr. Latchman, from visiting St. Vincent, you might know that a lot of our houses are built on the mountainside. Okay, and so if we are to resettle our people, then it would mean that we might have to build vertically. So that would take some serious engineering. It would also require people to rearrange the way they think about their homes and their property. So that would also require, we'd also need to teach them to live, as it were, communally. Because a lot of our people back home in St. Vincent and the Grenadines pride themselves on having their home on a lot of land, a plot of land, and on having their garden for aesthetic purposes, and on having their kitchen garden, which also contributes to the basket, and so which also reduces their economic dependency on other sources of income. So we need a social restructuring, rehabilitation, we need physical, and we also need, I would say, psychosocial. So in a nutshell, and from a layperson, there are different layers of technical expertise which we would need. And as the assessments continue and as the analyses are done, the specific types of support will be articulated, and we'll be sure to refer to the appropriate entities to provide such. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Ambassador, for answering that question. Now we have LJ Hunter. LJ Hunter, please unmute.
Oh, I have you now. Good evening. I'm so sorry. Good evening, and pay my respects to the different delegates online, calling in from UK, England. Thank you so much. I want to congratulate you on the resilience as Caribbean people that you have shown to do so far so well. And we continue here to pray for you. Here I am also in touch with, I am a broadcast journalist with our community radio station. So we're trying to rally to ensure that our communities hear what we can do. And we're working very closely with Church of God of Prophecy, JLB Shipping, and we're trying to do as best as we can. What I want to know is, have you had any contact there with national radio, as in, or TV, as in the BBC? Because we can get nothing here out of that national standard. And we want to ensure that before we start saying they haven't, we want to know, have you had any contact with national media there, and what has been the feedback in terms of what the UK are going to do to support or send aid to help?
Thank you for that question, Ms. Hunter. With regard, and thank you for your kind words of support and prayer.
You're welcome.
We have we have a High Commissioner in the UK.
I know that, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes, and he has been engaged also with the various diaspora groups there. The High Commission also has been engaged in fundraising to support the relief drives in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. With regard to the contact with the BBC and other media houses, I'm afraid I cannot speak about that at this point. However, Mr. Rudy Page had asked during our last update, which was our first update, Mr. Rudy Page had asked to be linked with broadcasting stations at home, and I was able to get some information, which I hope has been transmitted to him by now, on how he could link with the National Broadcasting Corporation. What I will do is that I will link also with the people in the Communications and Information Department and inquire about the dissemination and diffusion of information in the United Kingdom, because I understand that is very important for not only Vincentian and Caribbean nationals, but also at the level of the UK residents to know and understand what is happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thank you for pointing out that gap to us. We will certainly work on that.
Yeah, I'll drop my, if I can, I'll drop my email in the group. I would be most guided if you would send a contact to me, so that we here, even on the ground, where we have, like, Birmingham is the second city to London, and so we have a huge Caribbean outlet here, and we have a radio station here willing to support you, but we need that information. So if I drop my email in, if you could link me to someone, because I have tried to get hold of the High Commission for St. Vincent in London. I do accept that they're extremely busy, but if you could make me a contact, we can do some interviews, we can get this ball rolling here whilst we're waiting for government UK to do what it is they will or will not do.
Well, they have already, if I may say, made a contribution to the relief effort.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can just say here that the British media has shown an interest. They reached out to us for an interview. Roland Pease did an interview on his science in action. So I was one of the people interviewed from the Seismic Research Center, and they had a professor at East Anglia University, Professor Jenny Barclay.
We're not getting that on the main news, so it's not coming across like on the TV. And I'm not sure that I've heard it on radio, but certainly on TV. I'm on media all day, every day. And on the national news, on main news, when we're getting updates of what's happening in other countries, we're not getting anything about St. Vincent.
Also, I must say that Facebook social media now is where the information is at. So I do follow Nemo on Facebook. So
okay,
they get an update from Nemo. And I also follow UWI Seismic Research Center, and they also give regular updates. So Facebook is another aspect of obtaining relevant information.
Thank you for that.
Now we move on to Craig. And I know this one is something that I also would like to know from the UWI. Craig, you could go ahead with your question.
Okay, I'm in London. Before I start, I want to just put a bit of context to my involvement with CK. My dad is from St. Vincent. About in 2017, I set up an organisation, CK.com, and I've been supporting disadvantaged children in St. Vincent by providing sports equipment and kit. So I was in a real position to work locally on the ground as well as support Nemo. So, you know, I've been sending stuff out there, but I've got a couple of interesting questions. First one, I think is for Joan, really. And the question I've got is, do you have any indication as to how long the eruptions could continue for, really? I know it's a bit of a hard one to answer, but I'd like to sort of have some kind of idea. And how many eruptions to date?
There have been 32 eruptions to date. I gave the individual counts where it started off with 17 between the 9th and the 10th. So 32 to date. The last one was on the 22nd of April. As far as how long the eruption episode is going to last, whilst we are not guessing, we are trying to base our projections on the science. At this time, it is not possible for us to give a time frame for how long it's going to last.
So you couldn't say it was going to be weeks, months, years. I mean, I noticed you did say something around 10 months, I heard, unless I'm...
In 1902, that eruption episode lasted 10 months. In 1979, that eruption episode lasted 3 months.
Okay, so sorry to cut you. My next question, is I know we're going into volcanic season at the moment, hurricane season. So at the moment, the wind is blowing a certain way. With hurricane season, obviously, is that going to, if it's still erupting, will that have effects to the country? Have you sort of thought about that, or what's going on there, if that makes sense?
Well, depending on how the winds blow, where the hurricanes pass, and God forbid that you're having an eruption when you're having a hurricane going through, of course, the winds in a hurricane would influence what happens with the ash. Of course, with all the rain also, you will have a lot of it just being washed down into the sea onto land, most likely over St. Vincent. As it is, the last eruption explosion that we had, the ash went out into the sea on the west side. So the winds play a very important role in the direction in which the ash goes. If you have strong winds, clearly, we can't project on that. We would have to have the information at the time, what the hurricane is doing, where it is traveling, whether or not St. Vincent is to the north or south of the hurricane, because depending on that, there's a difference in how the winds blow. So yeah, we'd have to do that. That forecast would have to be given at the time the event is occurring.
Thank you so much for that information, Craig. Good point. We all wondering how long will this continue, but we'll continue to monitor and watch UWI update and NEMA update. So definitely, thanks for that information. Mr. Dunstan Woods.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dunstan Woods. I'm with SBGOP, which is St. Vincent and the Grenadines Organization of Pennsylvania. We're based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I want to thank Madam Ambassador and Mrs. Sharp for putting this presentation together, and for the presentation that Madam Ambassador and Dr. Lashman put out. Mr. Craig stole my thunder a little bit in reference to the period of the volcano eruption. I was wondering, this is my question is directed primarily to Dr. Lashman. I know although you couldn't put a time frame on it, is there something scientifically that you'd be looking at to see, to determine, okay, yes, this period of eruption is complete? That's my number one question. My number two question, and this has to do with the water on the ground within the community. I know about a year ago there was some drilling, some heavy equipment drilling done in the windward side. And someone mentioned to me, I wonder if this drilling that was done had anything to do with this this eruption. Could you address those two questions, please?
Unmute Dr. Latchman, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry also. As far as the signals we would use to project on whether or not the volcanic unrest episode, explosion, eruption, unrest and eruption episode is over, we are looking at the seismicity, we are looking at the gases, we are looking at the deformation. So all three of those parameters will come into play when we make our decision and advise on whether the eruption episode has ended. And at this time, we cannot say that. The indicators are not conclusive that that is the case at this time. The next question.
Thank you, Dr. Latchman.
The next question is, I forget the exact terminology in terms of what exactly was being done, but there was some heavy drilling equipment that was done in that area.
Yeah, you're talking about the geothermal.
The geothermal, exactly.
Yeah.
And
So
of course, someone mentioned, oh, that had something to do with it. So could you address that?
No. You must bear in mind that La Soufrière erupts. In 1979, there was no geothermal exploration. In 1902, there was no geothermal exploration. The fact that Soufrière is erupting at this time is consistent with the pattern of behavior. What gives rise to volcanic activity in our region is the subduction of the North American, South American plates beneath the Caribbean plate. It is a geological process. You have your material descending into the interior of the earth, melting, rising back to the surface of the earth to create that volcano, that activity. The system under Soufrière becomes recharged following an explosive eruption episode when material is released and pressure is released and the system stabilizes, but it continues to recharge because the subduction of plate material is ongoing. So your material, your system is filling and loading, and stresses and strains are accumulating, and pressure, and eventually it must be released in an eruption. This is just a natural process.
Thank you, Dr. Latchman.
Thank you so much. Pat, you had a question? Pat on iPad, sorry. Pat on iPad, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? This is Canon Jordan from the SVGOP, Philadelphia, and the Episcopal Diocese of Pennsylvania. As many of you know, Madam Gilchrist, it's so good to see you. We have asked that we become the central hub for Philadelphia, the Philadelphia area region, to relieve some support from New York. We are trying to send a container in the next few weeks. Should we be sending anything that is not on our flyer, or is there something in need right now that we should be asking, collecting, buying, and purchasing to send to the island?
Father Jordan, I will send you that information. I will send you that information so that you could have an updated list and an idea of the items which are needed. And we will also post that information so that it could be available to the wider population. And to make matters easier, since we do not have, the embassy does not have an updated website still, for which I apologize. For those of you on Facebook and is it Instagram, if you like SVG Drip, that's SVGDRIP, you will be able to get updated information, because at this point we are relying on our community groups or diaspora groups and groups such as SVG Drip, SVG Relief USA Inc. to put the information out there inside the space for us. So if you would check that, and we will also send you the information, Father, for your group to link with the New York effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. I just want to let everyone know that Tropical Shipper, with several drop-off points, Los Angeles, New Jersey, and so forth, they are providing special rate for relief items to SVG, other than the free shipping out of Standard Shipper in Brooklyn, New York. So just an update on that. The next person is Maggie Gard. Go ahead, Maggie.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to see so many unusual faces. I'm trying to see if I can see if I know anybody there. Actually, I am here in Hartford, Connecticut. I am from Bel Air in St. Vincent. We here in Hartford, we don't really have an organization as such, but I have an organization called Gardener's House. I think I did send out an invite to one of our wall to Ambassador Gilchrist at one time. And Gardener's House is an organization that helps families who are affected by cancer with basic needs. I myself am a 2-time breast cancer survivor. I am also working with Dr. Sandra Trotman from Florida, who approached me, and we are also putting some items together because they from one of the churches, the Seventh-day Adventists in St. Vincent, have boots on the ground. So we are working from all angles. One of the things I just want to place a bug in your ear in regards to agriculture. I am associated with, I don't know if you all know the Tower Garden. The Tower Garden is a way that you can grow your vegetables, herbs, anything that grows up from the ground without chemicals and pesticides. Excuse me. So that is one way that we can, even the ones that are in the shelter. And as I was listening, no one knows when the volcano would be quiet down. So this will be another way for us to be able to help those who are in the shelter to get some nutritious food, because from the pictures that I see, the agriculture situation have been really terrible. So as things progress, I would reach out to Mr. Andrew, and I would have more on that to say. But in the meantime, we are doing our little bit here from Hartford. In Hartford, we don't really have much Vincentians. The majority are in New York, but I am so glad and honored to be here on the second meeting, and hopefully I'll be able to get more update and do my best from here. My family are located in Bel Air in St. Vincent, and I was born in Fair Hall, lived in Bel Air, so now I'm here in Hartford, Connecticut. So you have my information in the chat, reach out to me, let me know how I can be part of what you're doing, not only temporarily, but on the long term, because we are in for the long haul. Because most of the time, everybody would be there with you, and as soon as things quiet down, everybody's gone and left to pick, then the folks are left to pick up. But I am pledging today that I will be with St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the long haul, because I myself, being a cancer survivor, I know what it is to be able to have people with you on a long-term base. So I just want to say thanks to everybody who are here and who are working on behalf of all of our people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thank you, guys. Andrew, you should have my information. Reach out to me anytime if you have any questions, or as I said, you know, about the Tower Garden aeroponics. This is another way that we can actually grow food fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, food, even in the shelter where they are. As the ambassador said, we don't know how long they're going to be there. So whatever we can do to help them, and this will be a good project for the kids as well as the adult, because I have a project like that in Jamuki Academy School, where the kids are learning to grow their own vegetables, herbs, and not only that, but they're eating it and they're healthy. So while the soil is getting itself ready, this is another way that we can actually produce, and it will produce within 4 weeks, because this is the technology that they use up in space. So we can get funding for that, and we can get some of these towers to St. Vincent. I myself will volunteer my time to go down there and to show how to set them up and to how it operates and everything, because I have one for myself on the back porch. So thank you for this opportunity. And we are doing our little bit from Hartford here in Connecticut. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maggie, and we'll reach out to you. I know that we have the West Indian Association of Hartford also, so I will reach out to you in the chat. So we're going to take 3 more questions. It's going to be from Charles Sharp, Judy's S21, and Dr. Claire Nelson. Mr. Sharp, proceed.
Yes, hello, Andrew, and no relation to Andrew Sharp. I had to put that out there. A lot of people think so, but I'm going to keep my questions very straightforward and to the point. One, Madam Ambassador Gilchrist, I know you mentioned the airport is accepting cargo, and I don't know the length of your runways and everything along that, but as a pilot, I know you can only do but so much with an aircraft. In terms
Hello? I think we just lost. Yes, we just lost Mr. Sharp. So we're going to
shipping in terms of and in terms of shipping these cargo ships. And question number two was mainly around the coordinated effort within St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Is NEMO, or should NEMO be considered the sole coordinated effort for supplies coming into the island itself? Because you can get a lot of confusion with everyone shipping everything, and no one knows where it's going to. And you want to make sure those at the local level receive what they're supposed to in terms of supplies and funding. The funding issue is NEMO or the St. Vincent government in collaboration with someone else to ensure transparency and credibility with funding efforts. The money that is raised gets to those communities that it's supposed to. That's the 3 questions I have.
Mr. Sharp, I'm afraid that I was not able to hear the first minute or so of your questions quite clearly. Your internet feed might have dropped a bit, but I will proceed to respond to what I consider to be the second and third in reverse order. The third regards funding, and you're asking whether or not, for the sake of transparency, there should be other entities involved in receiving funding. Now, the government operates within a legal framework. And within that legal framework, there are accounting and accountability and transparency processes. So there is a disaster relief account has been set up. Those funds will be used by the government based on the legal procedures established. There is a Finance Act, and each person, each entity engaging with those funds which go into the government's central reserves has to ensure that all of the statutes and procedures are followed. therein lies the framework for accountability and the framework for transparency. Government has central procurement procedures as well. So for example, if a community project is to be engaged in, let us say, a community that we need to reinvigorate, then the necessary documentation and paperwork will be done. We also have a public accounts committee, which is supposed to be chaired by the opposition. There you have the accountability, which is going to be looked after. We also have a system. Okay, let me also speak about other entities. I am not sure about the capacity of some of the other entities on the ground. Some of the, let us say, for example, the Red Cross, without prejudice to the Red Cross. I do not know if they have the capacity to manage a huge infusion of funds at this time. That is not to dissuade those entities which are engaging with the Red Cross and organizations such as the Red Cross from engaging with them. I am speaking exclusively of the government's legal framework within which it operates and the need for and adherence to accountability and transparency. Okay, so there are those processes. Could you remind me of your second question, please?
The second question was in regards to coordinated effort for logistics in terms of shipping supplies. And we're looking at from a global perspective, is NEMO, or should NEMO be considered that coordinator to see what's coming in, not to track what's coming in to ensure it gets to where it's supposed to go. Because Andrew mentioned tropical shipper, and I know you're going to have planes coming in, flying cargo in, and right now it's who's tracking what's coming in to make sure those needs are fulfilled. I remember the minister from Philadelphia mentioned that. What are the needs? And I've been telling the members of our association, follow the process that's there with NEMO and the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in terms of what the needs are. You know, so I'm looking at, and we're looking at and considering, is NEMO the source for all coordinated effort for the entire volcano earthquake crisis with St. Vincent, from sheltering to the refugees that are going to other countries, other nations, and that's basically it in a nutshell.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. NEMO is the National Emergency Management Organization. So NEMO has the responsibility for the national effort. And as I said before, NEMO is made up of private sector entities, volunteer clubs, service clubs, and other such organizations. Now, with regard, so you would understand from this that NEMO, being a part of the Ministry of National Security, having its council, of which the Prime Minister is the chair, has the central responsibility for disaster management. NEMO is being supported by the regional organization, CEDEMA, Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management, okay, Association, agency. And they provide logistical support. The RSS provides, Regional Security System provides support. Now on the ground, any supplies which are sent to the government can be consigned to NEMO or to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Or even if those supplies are consigned to another government ministry, they will end up in the government's central supplies. And again, with regard to central supplies, the receipt, inventory, and distribution all of those processes are governed again by the same legal framework. Okay, so any items which are sent and are sent to the government will be entered into the government's central supplies and will be removed therefrom only through the required paperwork and documentation. However, in the cases where individuals wish to send relief supplies to their families, they must consign those supplies, those packages, that shipment to their families. You must send supplies that are from Mrs. John to Mrs. John of Bel Air. If you think that sending a package for Mrs. John of Bel Air in a shipment that is consigned to Nemo is going to ensure that Mrs. John gets that package, it's going to be a very complicated process. It will be a complicated process because any consignment to Nemo must go to Nemo. Okay, so the idea that that supplies are not reaching some of the beneficiaries when they are sent to Nemo let me clear up the misconception by saying simply that consignments to Nemo are entered into the inventory of the central stores of the government. Individuals must send their supplies to their families, properly consigned to their families independently of the consignment to Nemo. Now, Nemo is not the only organization, or I should say entity, that can receive supplies. For example, we have a list of charitable bodies and entities, which I'm going to read to you now, which can receive supplies and which entities are part of the relief process. We have the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Red Cross, we have the Rotary Clubs, the Lions Clubs, we have also the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and any other established religious, charitable, and civic organizations. For example, if Father Jordan wants to send the consignment of supplies to a sister church in our diocese, that can be consigned to the sister church in the diocese. The sister church will then determine, based on the communication with the contact up here, whether who the beneficiaries of the consignment would be. And that is how it works. The Lions would also do that. The Rotary has a warehouse. The Rotary Club was given space by Nemo to manage a warehouse, and they are managing the stores and supplies which they receive. But any consignment to Nemo enters into the government central stores based on government's procedures. I hope that that is clear, sir.
Can you hear me? Yes, it has. I'm sorry. Yes, it has. And I know that SEDEMA, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, they had established a Caribbean Disaster Relief Fund years ago. And I know that those funds usually go down from there to the community level. I remember when Ron Jackson was in charge, that was something that went on. So a lot of times, and one of the things Andrew talked to me about, that there are a lot of GoFundMe sites popping up to get the money. But do those funds get to that community? And that was one reason why I mentioned the SEDEMA Relief Fund. I am assured that those funds get to that community. So thank you for making some clarification between the NEMA and how they look at the funds and the distribution of supplies and relief supplies. You really, really cleared up a lot. Thank you.
You're most welcome. And may I add that in addition to the fund set up by by SEDEMA, we have the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. They also have a relief drive. The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States is a group of countries such as St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, and the smaller islands in the Caribbean. And so there is that facility, there is the facility of SEDIMA, and there are the two facilities set up by the government. We have a Help St. Vincent link through which you can donate directly to the government's fund using your credit cards. And we also have the banking information through which you can send a wire transfer. And I will assure you that the procurement, the management of the funds, the procurement of items and of goods and services through the government systems, the procurement is transparent. No single person manages the government's resources.
And I'm sorry, so your banking industry, your banks within the island, they are established and running. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just
yes,
need to ask.
they are, yes, they are.
Okay, thank you.
They are. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp, for such important question. Now we're going to try and close up shortly. So Judy, your question, and then Dr. Nelson. I'm sorry, Dr. Ambassador, you had something?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to speak briefly about the GoFundMe account. Now, we cannot attest to the legitimacy of some of those accounts. What the embassy and the consulate have been doing is that we've been asking those people who have been setting up relief to contact us so that we can do the necessary due diligence, well, to the extent that we can. And so while we cannot de-recognize certain GoFundMe accounts because we will never have the whole body of information on them, we can say to you that we are in contact with certain individuals and certain drives, and we know of the authenticity and legitimacy of some. So we exclude others because we don't know about them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Judy, you could go ahead, unmute.
Hi, I don't have a long question. My question is, there's a lot of kids in the shelter. So I would like to know if the government or NEMO is doing anything to help these kids between the age of 4 up to 7 who have missed school last year. And while for the next few months, they're going to be missed a lot. So I just want to know what the government and NEMO is also doing to help the kids them that's in the shelter, education-wise.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Judy. Remember that the children were out of school for most of the last school year. They went to school for the last term. We were on schedule to reopen schools on Monday the 12th. That was forestalled by the explosive eruption. I said earlier also that the teachers, most of the teachers are working in shelters and some have been displaced. The Ministry of Education is working on the system to ensure that the delivery of education continues, because we do not want our students to fall behind, especially those who were already vulnerable. We do not want them to fall out of the habit of learning. And in fact, with the onset of the COVID-19 last year and with schools being closed for most of the last school year, students and teachers were provided with tablets to facilitate the online delivery of educational services to facilitate their learning. Last week, a few days ago, a second shipment of tablets was delivered. Those will be distributed. And as soon as the Ministry of Education has developed the framework for teaching and learning to continue, that will be done. In some schools, the teachers have already set up their literacy corners, their activity corners, and the children are engaged. So in terms of getting everyone back on stream, back on track with the curriculum, the Ministry of Education is working on that. Now, we also have students who are set to take external exams at the Caribbean Examinations Council. We have our 11-year-olds who have their exams to enter secondary school. We have the 16-year-olds who are set to take their CSEC, and we have the 18-year-olds who have to do their external exams for matriculation into university. And so these issues are being worked out as we speak. The Minister of Education has taken his proposals to the cabinet for discussion, and very shortly we will hear about the resumption of teaching and learning, because I'm a teacher, okay? So that one really is close to my heart. So in many shelters, children are engaged, maybe not fully with the formal curriculum, but remember, learning also takes place through play, especially at the level about which you just spoke, preschool and early childhood. So those systems are in hand at the moment. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Doctor. I just want to say we want to thank Dr. Joan Latchman. She has to run now. We will definitely have them on another update and continue to work with UWI to see how we can strengthen the relationship and even provide some support from the US to the Caribbean. I know, Dr. Nelson, did you have a question for them, for Dr. Latchman, before she leaves?
Yes, I did. Thank you so much, Dr. Latchman. I have been trying to reach the office in Trinidad in terms of some of the long-term research that has to be done on volcanic ash dispersal. I sent you a text in the chat, but you didn't see it. So please allow me to follow up with that and get your information directly from Andrew so I can deal with that partnership, that research partnership. And if I can continue with the first, thank you so much for being here and explaining it. If I can continue with my questions, Andrew, is this okay? Is that okay?
Yeah, man, continue. Go ahead, Dr. Nelson.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Ambassador, once again. I have to first of all say, Andrew Sharp and Authentic Caribbean, that had we not established this relationship with the embassies through ICS over the years, this sort of very easy to make arrangement would not have been possible. And this is what I want to drive home for all of those of you who are not involved in an organization, whether it be a church organization or community organization, please get involved. COVID should have taught you that being alone and think you can go it by yourself is not the way of the future. We all need to be involved in some way. So when these kinds of crises happen, we're much more easier able to move forward. Having said that, I want to just say that I do not think that there's need for anybody to create any new fund of any kind, because the government already has institutions and there are already existing St. Vincentian or regional structures that have been going around since the time of Ivan. In DC, for example, we have a very robust arrangement. It may not be permanent, but we know who to call because we've been doing it since Ivan. And so since the Antiguan and the last big hurricane in 2017, we created the Caribbean disaster relief. So nobody should be encouraging funds to be sent to anybody that's not already a government agency. You know who they are. It's NEMO, it is the OACS, and it is SEDEMA, or your already trusted groups that you already know about. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Okay, everybody's trying to be important at this late stage. We don't need new important people. Stick with the people you know and trust. On that note, going forward, those of you in the DC metro area, we certainly have that group that Lofton Sargent is in charge of. He's not on this call, so I'm just giving them a shout out. So Jasmine and other people in the Baltimore, Washington, DC corridor, please look to Lofton Sargent. If you don't have his information, please feel free to call me, email. I will give you his information. They are on top of it. They're packing, they're shipping, and they're raising funds to send more shipments down. Going forward on the reconstruction side, ICS tends to take the lead on that side of things. Please note that in June, disaster resilience will be a throughput for the whole month. 4th of June, we're talking about water, waste management, from the 5th to the 8th of June. If you're interested in that side of things, please be in touch. If you're interested in health and education continuity, mental health support, the people in Atlanta have been taking the lead on that. I'll put you in touch with them. Please be in touch. They're doing some work around that. On the week of the 25th, which is Caribbean American Legislative Week, where the voting a good 3 hours to disaster resilience, we need all hands on deck to make sure that we strengthen the Caribbean diaspora engagement with State Department and other agencies and have a seat at the table. We have been left out of events on the ground, and I am tired of being the only person in the room screaming and looking ugly to State Department. I need some, as we say in Jamaica, buckative to give him more gumption to go forward. Woo, that sounds like a sweet rhythm. All right, having said that, right? The last piece of it will be the week of June 28th to 29th. Business continuity, training, consideration for small business owners on the ground who are still reeling from COVID and now are reeling from this new thing is going to also be part of the conversation. So there's a lot of opportunity for those of you who have skills to speak, to present, who have experience in business continuity, who have experience in disaster recovery issues, to please be in touch with Andrew. He's very much a part of the team at ICS. Please be in touch. We need all hands on deck. Thank you so much again, Ambassador, for continuing to stay the course and being part, a really true ambassador. And I have to give her props. Every time we call her, she's there. She's not an absentee ambassador who only goes to high profile events, and give her props, because this is why we're able to trust her and to give her all the help we can. We know we're a small country and we all have to come together at this time to support each other. Thank you so much again, Andrew, for taking the lead on this. And the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nelson. We appreciate that. I want to say thanks to everyone who is on this call, and we have people on Facebook who is watching us. The first briefing had over 1,000 views on Facebook. So we are really, really happy. As I said, one Caribbean. Although I'm from Jamaica, I'm a Vincent, I'm a Bajan, I'm a Bahamian. One Caribbean, I'm a Caribbean boy. So I'm so happy to support the Caribbean. It's vital. We as diaspora community, come be a part of the movement to build back better and strong. All the resources, we came to America to establish ourselves, but definitely we want to build back home, because guess what? Home will be always home. And I know I'm not going to be here in the cold all my life. So I got to make sure my Caribbean is all built up well, and supporting the region is critical. Whatever expertise you have, Maggie came with another information on how she can provide support, and many others. And I must say thanks to the organizations who have been working to provide the relief effort. We here in Massachusetts, big up Mass, big up the Caribbean diaspora throughout the United States and the United Kingdom. We're so happy to have that connect. Never happened before. So diaspora people, let's mobilize, strategize, and get things done and be a part. June is National Caribbean American Heritage Month. So that is one opportunity for us to shine. And let's not forget, we have a lot of Caribbean folks in the United States government. So let us mobilize them. I know Congresswoman Yvette Clarke had spoken to Congress about looking at TPS for those who were stranded, affected by the volcano. So let's see what will happen with that. But she has been lobbying also for support from the US government. I want to thank you, Ambassador. As always, we appreciate the engagement. We're so glad to have you, and ACF will continue to provide support to you. We look forward to updating our diaspora people with the information, and we're glad everyone could be on this call to learn more on what's happening with the volcano. We want to thank the UWI for their effort. We're so happy to have an organization to be able to track what's happening on the ground with the volcano. Imagine in 1902, when We lost a lot of people. 1979 we had. So imagine if they were not there to really keep us with what's going on with the activity on the ground. So those companies we really need. Thank you again, Ambassador. Last thought before we close off. Thanks a lot, all my diaspora and friends of the Caribbean. Thank you very much. Ambassador, last thought.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. In closing, I would like to express my gratitude to Mr. Andrew Sharp of the Authentic Caribbean Foundation, to his team, and to his associates, his partners, such as Dr. Claire Nelson, who tells it as it is. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. And to Mr. Rudy Page, who's with us. I know it's his dinner time. Councilman Clifton, Dr. Gill, our honorary consul, Ambassador King had to leave to attend to another engagement. I would like to thank my staff members who are here and all of you, our friends, Dr. Latchman, who had to leave. I thank you on behalf of the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for your engagement, for your constant and unstinting support. We are in it for the long haul. It is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And we look forward to your sustained support. I thank you not only for your presence here and for the support now, but also for your ongoing support, for the ideas that you have put forward, such as Miss Gardner with the Tower Gardens. Yes, excellent idea. I thank you also for interrogating the processes which exist, because as I said earlier, it is through this type of interrogation that we can improve our services and engage more fully, not only with our people, but also with you who are our supporters, who are on our side. My final word of thanks to Andrew, to the team, to all of you. May God continue to bless you as he has blessed St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. I want to say to everyone, walk good. Walk good on your way. We really appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, all protocol established. Guys, have a wonderful Sunday afternoon. And now you can go eat on a Sunday dinner. Who haven't ate before. Have a good one, guys. Take care. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you.
Be in touch.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.